My parents kicked me out for getting a job and not being able to babysit anymore, then lied to the whole family when asked about it. So I went nuclear and exposed them, and now they're trying to force me back because their new babysitter quit. 2 months after I turned 17, I got my first job. But when I told my parents about it, their literal first words were, "Who's going to babysit our kids?" I should have been shocked, but because I knew my parents, I wasn't. So I replied, "Well, who's going to pay for my college tuition?" I expected that to stump them. You see, they had repeatedly told me in the past if I wanted to go to college, I needed to pay for it myself. But instead of conceding, they started laughing like my response was the funniest thing in the world. You're a woman, and women should be grateful to take care of kids, whether it's free or paid. Of course, in my case, it was free. My dad then chimed in with some words of wisdom. "You don't just get to be selfish and abandon the family, Julia. Do you know how much a babysitter for 4 kids costs these days?" I tried to compromise, to tell them that some of the money I made from work could go to them and the kids, but they didn't care. And to them, because I wasn't spending my life taking care of their kids, I deserved to be kicked out. They told me to pack my bags and leave. I just rolled my eyes in response. I ran upstairs, but as I did, for the first time in a very long time, I let myself feel it, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and most of all, the grief of knowing I'll never know a life where my parents love me. I didn't even bother wiping the tears away, just focused on stuffing as many clothes into a backpack as possible. After 10 minutes, they yelled at me to hurry up, and that's when we left for my cousins. On the way there, my parents kept trying to change my mind. My dad reminded me of how much my siblings loved me, or more specifically, how no one else could get them to stop crying like I can. Their manipulation wasn't even that good, but for some reason, I still felt bad. I started questioning if I really was selfish. My mom even started crying, not because she'd miss me, but because now they had to pay for a babysitter. So when we arrived at my cousin Megan's and they just drove off without saying goodbye, I felt even more guilt, especially when she opened the door, because her face immediately lit up with joy, and she gave me the first genuine smile I'd seen in a long time. Kindness felt so unfamiliar to me that as soon as we got inside, I immediately broke down in tears. Her face fell and she tried to console me. "Well, kinda. My love, why don't you just help your parents out a little?" Help? I've cut off friends, let my grades drop, sacrificed everything to constantly take care of their kids. I didn't mean to shout, but I couldn't help the anger inside me. I turned to face her with disgust at her suggestion, but that's when I saw a look of genuine shock on her face. "Your parents told me you were acting entitled and just didn't want to help out when you had nothing to do all day." I immediately started crying again, but this time it was in her arms. I told her the whole truth, why I ended up at her place, all while she held me and told me I would be safe under her roof. Surprisingly, she seemed anything but angry, but I would soon find out she was more than just angry. I ended up crying myself to sleep that afternoon. I didn't wake up until a few hours later when I heard Megan yelling. It was in the room next door. When I heard the anger in her voice, I sat up immediately. She was usually a very shy, timid person, so hearing her like this was super unusual. It was obvious that she was talking to my parents. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but I could tell she was laying it on them. I remember feeling a genuine smile creep onto my face. It was the first time someone had stood up for me. When I heard her hang up, I lay back down and pretended to still be asleep. Not knowing I was awake, she started speaking out loud, something Megan hasn't done since I was a kid, but what she said made me shoot up. Apparently, my parents had already found a new free babysitter. They had one available all along. This whole thing was just a ploy to kick me out of the house and get me out of the hair once and for all. After saying all this, Megan sighed and said I deserved better before heading to bed. And that's when I sat up, because she was right. I did deserve better parents. And if I couldn't get it, then I at least deserved to have my get back. My plan was bulletproof. You know that one gossipy aunt every family has? Well, we have one too. And I texted her every tiny little juicy detail of everything that happened between me and my family. It ended up being a 1,400-word message. I immediately turned my phone off because I was terrified of the consequences. And the next morning, when I finally felt brave enough to turn it back on, my soul left my body. My phone was blowing up with notifications, not just texts from my gossipy Aunt Barbara, but from pretty much every family member I had contact info for. Apparently, Aunt Barbara had taken my 1,400-word text and forwarded it to everyone in the family group chat without a moment's hesitation. I scrolled through the messages with my heart pounding in my chest. There were dozens of them. Some people were defending my parents, saying I was just a dramatic teenager, but a surprising number were actually on my side. My Uncle Joseph wrote a whole paragraph about how disgusted he was with his sister, my mom, for treating me like a live-in nanny instead of a daughter. My grandma Elizabeth sent a message saying she was heartbroken and that she raised her children better than this. Megan came into the guest room where I was staying and sat down next to me on the bed. She had her phone in her hand too. Megan snorted. "Are you kidding? Barbara lives for this kind of drama, but honestly, maybe it's good that everyone knows what's been going on." I wasn't so sure about that. On one hand, it felt good to finally have people believe me. On the other hand, I knew my parents were going to be furious, and I still had to figure out what I was going to do now. I had a job, but no place to live long term. I was still in high school, and despite everything, I missed my little siblings terribly. My phone rang. It was my dad calling. I looked at Megan, panic rising in my chest and my hands starting to shake slightly, but I knew I had to face them eventually. I took a deep breath and hit the accept button. I answered the call, bracing for the inevitable explosion. I wasn't disappointed. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" My dad's voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Megan could hear it too, and her eyes widened. I didn't even get a chance to respond before he continued his rant. He told me I was dead to him, that I'd humiliated them in front of the entire family, and that I could forget about ever coming home. The whole time I just sat there taking it, my eyes filling with tears again. When he finally ran out of steam, I managed to squeak out, "I didn't mean for Aunt Barbara to tell everyone." It was a weak response, but it was all I could come up with. "You stupid, ungrateful," he started again, but then I heard my mom in the background. She snatched the phone from him. Her voice was ice cold when she spoke. "Julia, you've made your choice. Don't expect any support from us moving forward. Not for college, not for your phone bill, nothing." I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't even thought about all those practical things. My phone was still on their family plan. I had been counting on them at least helping with college. "What about my stuff?" I asked, my voice small. "You took what you needed," my mom replied. "Anything else we'll donate if you don't arrange to pick it up by the weekend." The call ended abruptly. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling completely overwhelmed. Megan put her arm around me and gave me a squeeze. "Well, that sounded pleasant," she said, trying to lighten the mood. "Don't worry about your stuff. We'll go get it tomorrow while they're at work." I nodded, still in shock. My parents had basically just disowned me over a part-time job at a coffee shop. What kind of parents did that? The next day, Megan called in sick to work, and we drove over to my parents' house. I still had my key, so we could get in without any problems. The house was quiet. My parents were at work, and my siblings were at school and daycare. It felt weird being back so soon, like I was breaking in instead of coming home. I quickly went to my room and started gathering things I hadn't been able to fit in my backpack the first time. My favorite books, more clothes, my laptop, and some photos of my siblings that I kept on my desk. While I was packing, Megan was in my parents' home office. I didn't know what she was doing, but I was focused on getting my stuff and getting out before anyone came home unexpectedly. When we left, Megan had a folder tucked under her arm. I asked her what it was, and she just shrugged and said she'd tell me later. We loaded my stuff into her car and drove back to her apartment. Back at her place, Megan finally showed me what she'd taken. It was a folder with my birth certificate, social security card, and some other important documents. She had also grabbed my parents' spare credit card that they kept for emergencies. "You're going to need these," she explained, "and they owe you for all the free babysitting." I was shocked. "We can't use their credit card. That's stealing." Megan rolled her eyes. "Relax. We're not going on a shopping spree, but you need clothes for work, a new phone plan, and some basic necessities. They owe you at least that much." I wasn't comfortable with it, but I also didn't see many options. I had $50 to my name and wouldn't get my first paycheck for 2 weeks. So I reluctantly agreed to use the card, but only for things I absolutely needed. We went to the mall that afternoon. I got a few black t-shirts and pants for my coffee shop job, a cheap prepaid phone, and some toiletries. All in all, we spent about $200 on the card. Still, I felt guilty about it, even though Megan assured me it was nothing compared to what a real babysitter would have cost them over the years. The next day was my first shift at the coffee shop. I was nervous but excited to start earning my own money. The shop was called The Daily Grind. Super original, I know. The manager, Jamie, was pretty cool and patient with my training. I messed up a few orders and struggled with the espresso machine, but overall it wasn't too bad. When I got back to Megan's after my shift, I had 3 missed